everyone, welcome back to whatever this channel is. It's finally June, so I can talk about all of the books that I read in May. I read 7 books in May, which I think is pretty good for me considering how slow of a reader I am. This was a weird reading month for me. I kind of read all over the shop. I read romance, thriller, fantasy. So let's get into it. I've got some fun reads to talk about. First book I read in May was Beach Read by Emily Henry. This is the first Emily Henry book I've ever read. I think I chose this one because I hear everyone talking about it. This is always within like everyone's top 2 or 3 favorite Emily Henry books, so I thought it would be a safe option. This book is about January Andrews, who's an author who is grieving the loss of her father. So she goes to her father's house to clear out the space and sell it, and then reunites with kind of a fling from her past, Augustus Everett. They're both authors, and then they form a challenge to write each other's kind of book. Maybe it's horrible to say, but I was not a huge fan of this one. I found the romance not to be incredibly strong between the 2 main characters, and I didn't really believe either of them. I liked the plot line of them researching this cult for Augustus's book, but other than that, I didn't really feel a pull to either of these characters or the story. I understand why people say that Emily Henry is not a romance writer, because though this book has romance in it, it's definitely not a romance book. I probably won't read another Emily Henry book unless someone tells me that there's one that's just so much better than this one. I don't really think these kind of books are for me, so I gave this one a 2.75 on Storygraph. Apologies to anyone who loves this book, but yeah, it just didn't hit for me. The second book I read this month was Piranesi by Susanna Clarke. Piranesi, to summarize it in the simplest way as to not spoil you, it's about this guy named Piranesi who is in this gigantic house with endless rooms and hallways with sculptures and statues, and he doesn't really remember a life outside of this, but there's only one other person with him in this house. That's all I'm gonna say. This book was pretty fun. The first half of it I loved so much. Piranesi is a really interesting character to read. I really loved his inner monologue. The second half of this book did fall a little bit flat to me, and I think that the turning point in this book holds no ground because it makes no sense. I don't want to get into it without spoiling it, but there's a key shift in the plot in this book. For me, it didn't stand on solid ground because there's no reason for it to have occurred. There's nothing else that backs up that it could have happened in the first place. So this one is a bit of a confusing review, but overall, I liked it, didn't love it. I was wanting a bit more from it from the second half, but first half of this book I thought was really great. So I gave it a 3.75 on Storygraph. Would definitely recommend. A lot of people love this book, but I did have a few issues with it here and there. The third book I read this month was I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. This is a book about 40 women who are kept in an underground bunker. They don't really know why, but they are able to break out of it, and it's about their journey together. This one I was seeing really hyped up online. I didn't realize when I first started it that it was released in 95, since everyone was talking about it like right now. I really didn't connect with this one. I think there was a meaning that was maybe lost on me that I didn't get. I felt no real connection with this. I would love some feedback on what other people thought about this book. Yeah, there's not much to say other than that. Didn't really understand the hype for this one. I gave it a 2.75 on Storygraph. Despite the fact that it's only 200 pages, it felt like a drag to get through because I think I missed something, and I think I didn't fully understand what I was meant to be connecting with. The fourth book I read this month was The Secret History by Donna Tartt. I was a bit nervous to approach this one because it's really long and also very acclaimed, and I was scared what I was going to think of it and how long it was going to take me to get through it. This book, if you don't know, is about a group of classic students at a prestigious university, and it's about their relationships with each other and about a year of them going to school at this university. I loved the first half of this. I was about 50% of the way through the book, and I was like, I'm loving this. This is gonna be 4.5. And then as I hit the halfway point, it did start to drag as we approached the end. And I think some of the flaws in these characters weren't looked into deeply enough. Specifically Charles and Camilla, I think I would have loved a lot more into them without spoiling it. However, characters like Bunny, I think, were incredibly well written. All of his dialogue was like expertly crafted. I was amazed. I didn't like really any of the characters, but I think that is kind of the point, so it didn't bother me. This one I am quite torn on. I think the first half was really great, and then the second half kind of dragged a little bit, so I gave this one a 3.5 on Storygraph. Didn't love it, didn't hate it. Might return to it in 20 years, who knows. The fifth book I read this month was Misery by Stephen King. I've already made a whole video about this one. I absolutely loved it. It's about an author named Paul Sheldon who gets into a car crash and his #1 fan, Annie Wilkes, kidnaps him. This is my first 5-star read of the year. I thought it was fantastic. I did a whole video on this if you want to know more of my thoughts, but I think Stephen King is such a great writer, and this is such proof of it. Despite the fact that it all takes place in one house, it is still absolutely thrilling. Would highly, highly recommend this book. I think it is Stephen King, probably at his best. The sixth book I read in May was The Mustache by Emmanuel Correa. This book is about a guy who shaves off his mustache and no one notices, so he goes crazy. I was so surprised by this book. I thought it would be like a quick, easy read because of how short it was, but man, there is some serious inner monologue in here that is so interesting to read. A lot of this really is just like a stream of consciousness. It is quite wild. Would highly recommend this one though. I gave it a 4.25 on Storygraph, and yeah, was really pleasantly surprised. I didn't know that I was gonna love it so much, but yeah, it was great. And the last book I read in May was this behemoth, Midnight Sun by Stephenie Meyer. This book is so long. It is 750 pages. Wow, Edward can talk for a really long time. If you don't know, this is Edward's perspective of the events that happen in the first Twilight book. I did struggle with it a bit because I just thought Edward does ramble and ramble and ramble for so long. There's so many moments where Edward would be thinking about something for like 6 pages, and then by the end of it he'd be like, oh, and like only 2 seconds passed in the entirety of the time I was thinking about that. And I was like, my god, okay, we're in for a long one. It was really interesting getting to see more about like Jasper's powers and Alice's powers, but overall I didn't think this was entirely needed. It was nice to rewatch Twilight after this though, and like thinking about it all from Edward's perspective. But yeah, overall I think if you read the 4 original Twilight books, I don't really see a reason to read this one. It didn't add all that much to the plot, but yeah, it does feel good that I've read this because I am a big Twilight fan. Sadly, I rated this a 2.75 on Storygraph. If it was a little bit shorter, I probably would have enjoyed it a little bit more, but overall, it was just a bit too long for me and a bit unnecessary. Those were all the books I read in May. I hope you enjoyed. I'm looking forward to some good June reads. I want to get maybe another 5-star book in there. Let me know what you guys read in the month of May. Let me know if you had any 5-star reads, and let me know if you really disagreed with any of my opinions on any of these books. I know people are really going to hate me for hating Beach Read, but I'm sorry. I'm speaking my truth. And yeah, I'm excited to get into some reading in June. I'll see you later.